Hi, this is Remembering the Past, the show where we talk about people who've died recently who've had a profound effect on our history, our society, or our culture. And in our ongoing series on Medal of Honor winners, tonight we're going to honor Marine Colonel Wesley Fox, who died recently at the age of 86. Colonel Fox was awarded his Medal of Honor in 1971 for his actions in Operation Dewey Canyon, an 8-week offensive in the winter of 1969, one of the last major offensives of the Vietnam War. Took place in the Quang Tri province, the northernmost province of South Vietnam, in the A Shau Valley, and we talked about the A Shau Valley before. The North Vietnamese regulars gained control of that in 1966. They pumped huge amounts of men and materiel through the Ho Chi Minh Trail in Laos, whose neutrality they did not recognize, and they established their sanctuary in the A Shau Valley, which was easier for them to defend. Here is a Marine film explaining the goal of Operation Dewey Canyon.
In the northwest portion of I Corps, the Marine Corps' area of responsibility in the Republic of Vietnam, are two valleys. They form a natural avenue of approach for the infiltration of North Vietnamese troops and war materials from the sanctuary of Laos to the South Vietnamese cities of Hue and Da Nang. These valleys are the A Shau and the De Krong. The mountains surrounding the valleys are rugged, with only Route 548 passing from Laos on the west, south through the valleys. During the monsoon season, the valleys are all but cut off from the rest of I Corps by the low cloud layer. It is under this cloud cover that the North Vietnamese Army built up supplies and launched their Tet Offensive of 1968 against the city of Hue. In January 1969, aerial photography in and around the valleys indicated the enemy was once again building up supplies in this area. 3rd Marine Division recon teams operating deep in enemy territory confirmed this information. Route 548 was being heavily traveled. Fortifications and communication facilities had been constructed. The infiltration and massive buildup would have to be stopped. Thus, an operation was born, codenamed Dewey Canyon.
So Operation Dewey Canyon was not a combat mission, and it wasn't a seize-and-hold territory mission. It was to deny sanctuary to the enemy. It turned out to be one of the most brutal battles of the war. Colonel Fox's unit was known as the Walking Dead, and 5 Medals of Honor were awarded, with Colonel Fox being the only survivor. When he earned the Medal of Honor, he was a first lieutenant. When he was awarded the Medal of Honor, he was a captain. Captain Fox's citation at the Medal of Honor website reads as follows: Rank, First Lieutenant, Company A, 1st Battalion. Date of issue, March 2nd, 1971. Place, Quang Tri Province, Republic of Vietnam, 22 February 1969. Organization, U.S. Marine Corps, 9th Marines, 3rd Marine Division. For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty while serving as commanding officer of Company A in action against the enemy in the northern A Shau Valley, Captain, then First Lieutenant Fox's company came under intense fire from a large, well-concealed enemy force. Captain Fox maneuvered to a position from which he could assess the situation and confer with his platoon leaders. As they departed to execute the plan he had devised, the enemy attacked, and Captain Fox was wounded along with all the other members of the command group except the executive officer. Captain Fox continued to direct the activity of his company. Advancing through heavy enemy fire, he personally neutralized one enemy position and calmly ordered an assault against the hostile emplacements. He then moved through the hazardous area, coordinating aircraft support with the activities of his men. When his executive officer was mortally wounded, Captain Fox reorganized the company and directed the fire of his men as they hurled grenades against the enemy and drove the hostile forces into retreat. Wounded again in the final assault, Captain Fox refused medical attention, established a defensive posture, and supervised the preparation of casualties for medical evacuation. His indomitable courage, inspiring initiative, and unwavering devotion to duty in the face of grave personal danger inspired his Marines to such aggressive action that they overcame all enemy resistance and destroyed a large bunker complex. Captain Fox's heroic actions reflect great credit upon himself and the Marine Corps and uphold the highest traditions of the United States Naval Service. Here, Colonel Fox tells his story.
I was born on a small farm in Virginia, northern Virginia, not far a couple miles out of Herndon, from Herndon, Virginia, and the first of 10 children. Loved farming. I loved everything about the work. We had horses. That was our means of plowing and all. Couldn't afford tractors. I loved horses and really intended to be a farmer. And if it had not been for the Korean War, I probably would not have gotten away from the farm. But the Korean War started, and when I could get a break from thrashing wheat and making hay, I visited a Marine recruiter and ended up enlisting.
Wesley Fox enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1950. Contrary to his plans to be a farmer, he wound up instead staying in the military for 43 years and rising to the rank of colonel. Fox served 2 tours of duty in Korea as a Marine rifleman and later as a platoon sergeant. His defining moment, however, would come during the Vietnam War.
My assignment was with the Vietnamese Marines as an advisor, infantry battalion advisor. The Tet Offensive caught me halfway through that tour, but basically I was not happy with the way the Vietnamese handled the war. It was too much of what I classified as search and avoid instead of search and destroy operations. We didn't take the fight to the enemy. Bottom line is I extended 6 months in Vietnam to go north with our Marines because I knew they knew how to take the fight to the enemy. I was a first lieutenant by that time, and even though a Marine rifle company commander normally is a captain, I had hopes of getting a company as a first lieutenant. And as luck would have it, I did end up as the company commander of Alpha 1st Battalion, 9th Marines. That was a good experience throughout the whole 6 months, but I think the highlight of the whole tour and Vietnam experience, of course, was my fight on 22 February 1969, in which my mission was to see if an enemy unit was where it was the day before. If it was, do something about it. Well, I found them. They were there, and I locked into them, only to find they were a bigger force than my small understrength rifle company. At that time, I was down less than 90 Marines from a 240-man rifle company. The fight started, I had 2 platoons in the assault, in an assault formation, moving through that jungle towards the sounds of the mortar tubes that were popping. And at that point, the enemy also had a machine gun that was firing into the trees. So we had a focal point. There was like, here we are, come and get us. And we did that. 2 platoons up and 1 in reserve. So on that rainy, miserable, cloudy day when we couldn't use air, artillery, anything else, it was nothing but a rifleman's fight. Early in that fight, I lost all my platoon leaders, killed or wounded. So the leadership was not really there. But again, what I'm saying, it was each Marine's motivation to take the fight to the enemy, moving to the sounds of the enemy's guns. The point where I realized that it's a bigger force than what mine was when my assault stalled. And at that point, I moved along my forward Marines in that jungle. Each Marine that I saw was down. And unless he was firing his rifle, he appeared probably impressed that he was a casualty. At that point, I realized it's a stronger force than mine. And what I would like to do is break contact, sorry guys, and get out of here. I thought that I was hurt worse than I was. I realized that in order to break contact, I've got to get all my casualties out. I'm not leaving anybody. I'm going to lose more Marines doing that. And then I probably won't have enough to defend us with carrying the wounded, and we're going to have our hands full, and we won't be able to fight. So at that point, one thing I did was made the decision that we'll win this fight. We'll either walk out or we'll all stay in the valley. And I called my reserve platoon commander up and told him to take his platoon in the attack between the center of my 2 attacking platoons. A mortar or a rocket-propelled grenade, not sure which it is, landed amongst us at about the time that he understood the order and seriously wounded that platoon commander. My company executive officer, Lieutenant Lee Heron, was standing there. He had heard what I told Jim Davis to do. Lee wasn't hurt, so I told Lee to take the 2nd platoon in the attack, which Lee did.
As the reserve platoon slammed forward, the executive officer was struck down by machine gun fire. With the platoon now leaderless, Fox stepped in, reorganizing the company and directing their fire. Together, they hurled grenades into the enemy ranks and drove them into retreat. Though wounded in the final assault, Fox refused medical attention. Instead, he established a defensive position to ensure the safe evacuation of his wounded buddies.
My battalion commander, a couple of days after the fight, I was in his CP. He was on the ridge with us. My company, Alpha, and Charlie were on the ridge with the battalion command group. For whatever reason, was in his CP, getting some guidance of what we're going to do, I guess. And I'm on my helmet, seated on my helmet, and he tells me he's going to put me in for the Medal of Honor. Well, I almost fell off my helmet. I couldn't believe it. So this was January of 70. It was approved on Nixon's desk. I didn't get it until March of 71, a year and 3 months later, waiting for the right political climate. Being a Marine at that point, I'd had 22 years in the Marine Corps, so I was pleased and proud to receive the medal for what my company did, for what we did on 22 February. A lot of our countrymen don't know what the Medal of Honor is, and that's one of the tasks that the Medal of Honor Society has, is making our young people aware and our countrymen aware of what our servicemen have done, and along the way, some of the recognitions that they get. Again, I'm pleased and proud to wear it for the Marine Corps and what my Marines did on that particular fight. Again, I feel a little bit of an emptiness in knowing that there were others deserved in that fight that were not awarded. Again, because nobody was there to tell the story.
Well, despite the fact that the war was winding down against us, Dewey Canyon stands as one of the most successful American operations. Casualties were heavy. Officially, 1,617 North Vietnamese regulars were reported killed and 5 captured, while 130 Marines were killed and 920 were wounded. The Marines had effectively disrupted a major enemy logistical center, including in their haul more than 1,000 North Vietnamese small arms, some 800,000 rounds of ammunition, and about 220,000 pounds of rice. The North Vietnamese spring offensive had to be called off, and it was delayed for an entire year. One Marine wrote a poem about Operation Dewey Canyon. 11 days of rain and fog, the roof a dark gray sky. 3 days no food or water, the choppers couldn't fly. The nights were long and sleepless, awake was every man. Their torment dealt by nature was taken in its stride, and the NVA learned lesson 1 about Marine Corps pride. Pain and hunger, thirst and blood were borne by these brave men, and if you asked them, do it again, they'd only reply, say when. Well, I'm going to close on that note. I want to thank my producer and IT genius, Sid Tepps, Colonel Fox. Our gratitude is unlimited. We cannot begin to repay the debt we owe you. In your honor, we will close with the Marine Corps hymn.
Marines fight because of their perspective on how they fit into what I would call a family. And they know what the other members of that family will do because of their training and their involvement with their fellow Marines. And then it gets down to that point where he, the individual, is concerned that he does his share, that he does what his buddies expect him to do. And it's not letting those other Marines down. Some leaders lead by fear. I think a more effective leader leads by example. He shows care and concern for his Marine. He respects them, and they in turn respect him. They will follow him in combat knowing that he'll not waste it. A leader is a man that can get other men to do what needs to be done when it needs to be done.
Thank you again, Colonel Fox. Semper Fi.